So there's all these restaking protocols, and restaking was hot. But why does the world need another restaking protocol? What are the current problems with the previous ones? And just why Symbiotic?
Yeah, I don't think that we need more than one restaking protocol, personally. The problem with other restaking protocols, most of them at least, is that they have a hard position on things. The harder position you have, like this is how the slashing is supposed to work, this is how like rewards are supposed to be distributed, this is how the stake should be wrapped. The more you have the more you limit the demand side. Because if protocol founders need to adapt their idea and adapt their protocol for the restaking to be useful, it's not a good value proposition, and you limit yourself. I don't know, the limit there is pretty obvious. Even with terminology, right? You have AVS, so the protocol needs to become something else, right? Like some actively validated service. Which is to be put into some category. With Symbiotic, we try to avoid this at all costs, to make us basically a Swiss Army knife of any decentralization. Restaking is part of it. Shared security is part of it. We try to make it as flexible as possible. So basically, every protocol that uses us for something is creating some new way of thinking about how other protocols can be organized. And if we just said okay, yeah, we have our token and it's subjective, right? We use this for subjective slashing. It would be really hard for other protocols because you for other ideas, because what if I don't want to use your token? What if I don't want to use prediction markets for it? What if I have some ideas of my own? And we have multiple protocols building the subjective slashing mechanisms because we didn't specify this is how it's supposed to work. It is going to be working natively. Same with I don't know, some restaking protocols are doing rollups. Some restaking protocols are doing data availability. Which basically limits them as well, because they basically have a native product that competes with other decentralized networks. So basically the idea behind Symbiotic is that if any protocol can get traction, that's going to be us. And in terms of traction, I mean not the token price specifically, but actual demand, actual networks benefiting from using us.
So if I'm hearing everything correctly, Symbiotic is trying to be the one restaking protocol that fits any use cases and isn't bottlenecked to certain terminology or ideas. And that's your take on the whole. That's why Symbiotic essentially.
Yeah. Well, some protocols, some other protocols, have limitations in terms of architecture. Right, some of them will use Bitcoin and they have this breach that's double signs, so it protects against double signing. So the base for the protocol is going to be a bit limited. So and some of them are Solana specific or something else. Symbiotic is basically it uses Ethereum for orchestration, but it actually works with Bitcoin, with soon to be hopefully to Celestia and any other ecosystem. So even in that, we are a bit different from other protocols, not a bit, but by a lot, because we are not aligned with one ecosystem.
And can you quickly give us a overview of just why restaking in general, and then we'll get into more other stuff.
Yeah, the idea is quite simple. You have something that is underutilized, and you can utilize it more and get more bang for every buck that you have. This part is quite easy. You reuse your tokens multiple times. You either do that to get a stable base for proof of stake systems, or you use it as an alignment mechanism because you use only one type of token for different applications within one alignment structure. So for rollup, like it's like finality stuff and interop and other things, and bridges and not bridges but like PBS sort of constructions and for preconfirmations for ecosystems such as that have oracles, it's oracles, maybe RPC even, yeah. So restaking is quite easy in understanding. I think in quite an obvious idea because it was tried at least since 2012 in different variations. Shared security, on the other hand, is a bit more complex because you want to incentivize people to launch decentralized, and it's not an easy feat because redundancy is expensive, and protocols are at least some of them are really afraid of losing control. And if you have one sequencer running on one machine and having a backup somewhere and that's it, it's super easy to operate. And if you have politics and stake and everything, it's quite hard. It's hard to get best of operators. It's hard to create an economic security that's stable enough and independent enough and aligned enough. So the idea behind shared security is that we use restaking as a base, really easy motivator for people to join. And after that, create additional value. The whole pipeline works can be really optimized because you're not talking your experience can be reused for other networks. When you're launching decentralized yourself, it's really hard because it's one-to-one. You go to one operator, it gets you a form, right? That's gonna audit your tech stack. They're gonna audit your tokenomics, and if you go just by one, and your experience is not gonna be used ever again. Well, only if your protocol fucks up and you need to launch another network. But that's the only case. Your experience is that you created you've been working on it for a year, and after that you don't need it anymore if you done things correctly. In shared security, it's reused. So every newly launched protocol is standing on the shoulders of the others.
Could you talk about how you sort of came to this conclusion? Sort of give a quick introduction, your experience, your background, and then sort of how you started Symbiotic.
Yeah, my name is Misha. I'm co-founder of Symbiotic. Before that, we founded Symbiotic with Algis. That's my technical co-founder. We founded StateMind before that. It's a research and security firm for everything blockchain. And before that, we worked on liquid staking on Polkadot. This was basically the first time I touched shared security, because we were the first protocol to actually utilize XCMP. It's a messaging cross-parachain messaging protocol for Polkadot. And yeah, I was thinking about this since then. I think since 2019. Because the idea is easy, right? For Polkadot, it was the same. Just utilize the infrastructure of Relay chain, and you're basically you're getting security for your smaller chains. And when Polkadot failed a bit to get traction, I was thinking a lot about, because the problem is quite obvious, right? It's really hard because I've done it and consulted multiple times. It's really hard to launch a decentralized networks. If your operators are not up to task, you're gonna get you're gonna spend 5 hours per day in validator chat just trying to figure out why something broke. UX is gonna be bad. You'll have like slots. It's hard to like because Ethereum and other like major blockchains work so well. It's really hard to imagine like having like 5, 6, 10 empty slots in a row. In terms of validation, like you send in transaction, it's not validating, or like losing finality. Yeah, it's not fun. So we were like one in StatMind, we were thinking about this a lot, and the main problem for us was that like how do we create a system that can get demand? Because again, like it's really hard to design a system that's not limiting for protocols. Yeah, around like a year and a half maybe ago, close to a year and a half, I guess ago, we started like actively developing it because we figured out the way how to make it basically like how to make it as frictionless as possible. So like the idea behind it was that we had a whiteboard where it says like I want to use shared security, but so, and we named every drawback. Like I'm afraid of losing control to some like outside DAO. It's my consensus, right? It's not some insignificant part of my system. Yeah, and like I want to launch my own token. Like how do I do that? Like is it gonna be easier for me or harder for me? I want to use some I don't know esoteric structures for consensus. Such as like proof of governance or something like that. What happens then? Like, can I still use this protocol? And like I developed this middleware that to launch with shared security, but like, is it gonna be hard for me to switch to my own operated structure? If that like, do I have any motivations of doing so? Because like for other protocols, restaking protocols, graduation problem is like the biggest problem basically. What's stopping me from like when I go like a year or two and I'm really successful? What's stopping me from moving away? And like some of them are solving this with like vendor locking and a lot of other like questionable tactics. But for Symbiotic, you don't actually have like any incentive. So like once those questions were answered, and we realized like, yeah, we actually have something. Yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, I think shared security has always been like, you need to bootstrap your own network. And so like this has been like the Cosmos problem of starting your own blockchain, or like other networks, or you have like the shared security stuff where you share security, but now you're bottlenecked. I think the first example of shared security was probably like merge mining with Dogecoin and Litecoin.
Yep.
I think that's really interesting. Can I get your take on? So with shared security, there's always limitations on expressivity. Could you get? I want your take on the word restaking. I've heard a lot of people say like the idea is cool, the word sucks. Can you just give me your take on sort of terminology? And can I get sort of? I think the name Symbiotic is obvious, but explain why the name Symbiotic.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like restaking as well. It's like, but it was like before that it was like cross staking. I think in Cosmos like the term was going around cross staking. Then like the eigenlayer like renamed it to restaking. And when we started thinking about it, yeah, like you don't like we could use prefix or like try to imagine the other word, but it's like good enough, you know. You're not excited about it, but it's good enough. I like the decentralization like as a service or something in this, like we are like calling ourselves lately just decentralization protocol because that's what we are. Restaking is part of it, but it's not like in my mind if we provide a service that has a multiplier even without restaking, like we still deliver a lot of value, even like if you don't use restaking at all. Then we are doing something correctly, because restaking will just amplify everything. So like if you're delivering, like if it's like 2 times easier to launch with us than without us, restaking will multiply it by like 5. So you'll get like 10, multiple of 10. In terms of like Symbiotic, yeah, like one of the requirements in our mind to get traction was like how do we design a system that can be all-encompassing? Because like if you're permissioned, or if you have like active politics, or you compete, it's really hard for you to become big, because like people will start immediately screaming murder, because like you're getting too big, like you have way too much power. And the idea was that, yeah, let's design a protocol that can basically like encompass the whole sector of the industry, and still not be scary. That was the whole idea, and like we designed it in a way that even if we take everything, it's not going to be scary and it's not going to be dangerous. And again, like from the StateMine days, like we hacked like dozens of protocols, and we know how like unstable like some constructions, even the ones that are like well thought out, can be. So yeah, this is basically a symbiotic part of it. The only way to be all-encompassing is to be symbiotic to people. Don't compete. Don't have our own like solutions for like DA, oracles, or any other things. Maximal flexibility, not vendor lock-in in any way. Yeah, the whole point is for us to be symbiotic with with everyone. That's why we don't have native staking, because we don't want to compete with Light or Rocket Pool and other guys. Because like why? They're doing a really good job. Why do we compete? Like for us to compete if we can be symbiotic.
So you guys are sort of ecosystem agnostic, sort of asset and stake agnostic, neutral. So you guys don't have any other applications. Can you talk through sort of how the architecture of Symbiotic powers this? Sort of talk about the tech stack and how it allows for this flexibility.
Yeah. So the core is immutable. Basically, the task of a core is to account. So as a result, you get like a list of like stake attached to the key of operator that basically like that network is gonna use. Then the node code, when it receives the message, sees if the message is sent from like a valid signed with valid key, and basically decides like if this validator can even do this, can even like produce the block, or like report a price, or do like provide information in case of data availability. We decided, like again, we here want to have like as much flexibility as possible. So like the core is really simple. It basically enforces the obligations from 3 sides: operator, staker, and network. Stake is connected to the operator and the network through the resolver, or a group of resolvers. Resolvers are arbitration layer that basically can say no, like the slashing was not valid, and adds additional layer of protection for the stakers. Other than that, like we don't stipulate anything. You can use stake that is like on Celestia, like you can do that. The stake, and this is like unique to restaking protocols. We actually don't need like as robust of the bridge and fast bridging to a network. That's why we can like connect to basically anything, because like everything is asynchronous. And you don't need the instant communication, like instant slashing mechanisms. As long as it's like within slashable window, it's great. So basically, like any asset can be used to align any ecosystem. Ethereum is like, that's why we chose Ethereum, because it like for restaking, it doesn't have to be cheap. It doesn't have to be like fast. It just needs to be the most like efficient in coordination.
And so It's a immutable smart contract on Ethereum. Is that
Yeah,
true? Okay.
Well, there are two parts to everything. You have like a node code, so it can use the Cosmos SDK. It can use other like Substrate or any other like OP. You have node code that basically receives information on registry of operators from Ethereum, and decides and like then its functions off chain, of Ethereum chain. I mean, yeah.
Can you talk about the what was the word again? You said providers or
Stake providers.
the you had the stake providers, the immutable contract on Ethereum, and then you have the what was the third one again?
Operator, staker, network.
Was
Resolver.
there,
Yeah, so
you described Resolver.
yeah.
That's it. Can you talk about that more? I'm unfamiliar with that.
Yeah, it's unique to us. As far as I know, at least like we were the first one to introduce that. Well, slashing is scary, right? Like, and we were the first one to actually have an architecture for that. So, like, we try to think like, how do we make it that it's not scary anymore, not as scary anymore, and moreover, can we add some unique functionality to it? So basically, resolvers as everything in our protocol can be customized, and they can be like a straight up committee. So like 5 people deciding if like slashing is valid or not. It can be algorithmic. So like you like provide a proof or like have some like fraud contest and like fight each other to prove that the actual slashing exists. So this is like the last layer of protection. It can be a temporary solution. So like at some point, if you understand the algorithm is like good enough, you can disable resolvers. Or it can be like permanent. If it's algorithmic based, maybe some other proven algorithm, so you have like double check. Or it might be introduced when network upgrades, which you can't actually do if you're going natively. So the resolver we expect to be like a really important part of the equation, just to protect the stake and make sure that like one point of failure doesn't destroy like the totality of stake.
And so, I guess now let's talk about the slashing conditions. So these are just programmable, just like whatever conditions you would like. Is that really it?
That's how it's supposed to be. Because networks like we have like I don't know, like couple of Oracle networks, couple data availability, couple pre-confirmations. So like more than 2 of anything. Basically, and the slashing conditions for each one of those, like some of them are double sign, some of them are like completely different, some of them are gonna be like UX based, such as liveness, which is really hard to prove. So yeah, one size fits all doesn't work here. You need to be flexible about it. But people like the argument that I'm hearing is that a lot is that like, oh, this means that networks can do like really wild stuff. Yeah, that's kind of the point. And like if they're doing something that's like super dangerous, they're not getting stake. And this is the mechanism for them to be scored. And scoring, by the way, like it's a really like not a lot of people talk about it because like none of the protocols are production yet, so it's like no risk for now. But the scoring methodologies are gonna be like the most important part of restaking, basically the industry. How do you score slashing conditions like tech stack, operator set? Like how do you assign the risk to every network?
I guess I'm going to go through a example, and then like you're just gonna like go through all the options. So like I want to start a Cosmos chain. how much security do I need if I come to Symbiotic? Like, how much security would I get, or how's the calculations?
Yeah, depends on like the curve. Depends on the curve. Like, I'm not gonna share the calculations that our networks have because it's there. But the general logic goes something like that. You estimate the amount of traction. Like one Cosmos network can, I don't know, have like commitments for like $2 billion immediately, like from Tether or something else, right? They're like launching every DeFi protocol there is on Cosmos immediately on there, and they have a marketing budget of like, I don't know, $100 million, right? The good rule of thumb is that if you want to onboard like several $billion, you should have at least as much in the security base, or like some, I don't know, like that, not a couple of orders of magnitude smaller. Depends on your curve in terms of token. Like you can there are a lot of like different mechanisms that you can use. Like say if you have like V token mechanism that blocks your newly minted utility token to like for 2 years to validate, right? Then like your economic base should be like comprised of like some tokens that are, I don't know, like more liquid. So yeah, like.
So I have this. Go on.
Yeah, so it's different for everyone, but like the rule of thumb is that price of corruption. Like you calculate the price of corruption, and you get like you get enough stake to basically like have some symmetry in terms of like the price of attack and like the benefit of it.
So then that would be, if I had like $1 billion of stake, you would need a 66% attack. So it would be like, you know, $666 million is like the lowest amount of security that I would need for my chain,
yeah.
Right? Okay. And so let's say I want to rent security from Symbiotic, then how would I do that? Talk about sort of the resolvers I could use and sort of interacting with the smart contract on Ethereum.
Yeah. So if you want to use Symbiotic, first, like you're not getting stake from Symbiotic, right? You're getting stake from stakers. So like you go to LRT, you go to like to people, you can create your own vault if you don't want to use LRTs or like mint any tokens. You just like you create like a voting or like snapshot vote or something, like you're not decentralized yet, and you figure out a way how to incentivize them. This is the start. Like, do you want to incentivize them with points? Do you want to incentivize them with tokens? Do you want to incentivize them by some other, like, do you want to use Symbiotic for airdrop, basically? And then you figure out how much stake you need. You create a pre-deposit vault. Basically, that if you don't have these tokens that you like already in Symbiotic, you can create a pre-deposit vault that's going to be connected to your network. Then you register your network, you deploy your middleware that basically assigns roles and assign rules, like I accept this token in this amount, like from this operator. It registers operators, operators opt into your network through the stake. And once you approve them, like you get your operator set. Then you have node code that you could have, like you should have had, basically for anything decentralized. And this node code just looks in Ethereum and sees the operator registry. And when they receive the message from other validators, operators, or any other primitive, then they check if the signature is valid and has stake attached to it, and like validates this transaction, or it receives like double-sided transaction that it knows to go somewhere and like send a slashing message. This message goes through the resolver. And the resolver basically like decides if this slashing is valid or not. And if it decides on a slashing, it basically sends the signal to unwrap and burn. If the burning is like enabled for this token.
So the resolver is sort of what eigenlayer does, which is the whole intersubjectivity thing, right? Is that like essentially what eigenlayer has as their like enshrined resolver? And so like, I guess the security is now determined by their token and like their intersubjectivity stuff. Is that the correct?
Yeah, it's it's a subset. Yeah, it's basically one particular case of how resolver can be used. We have several protocols that are building subjective resolvers. I don't expect them to be mainstream. That was why I was like really surprised that they're using this for their own, like the eigenlayer was using that for resolving, because why would you go like prediction markets if you can do some like there are a lot of other protocols that are not covered by that, and that can be covered like algorithmically or some other way. But yeah, it's a valid case of resolver. The interest like subjective. Yeah.
My question is around, so you have like, let's say $1 billion of stake. My Cosmos chain has 100 operators. I like register 100 of them on the sort of symbiotic contract. So the contract knows like, here's 100 operators, $1 billion of stake. I want only sort of my coin and other blue chip assets. Now the resolvers would sort of get, the Cosmos SDK has pretty simple like proving slashing. So a slash happens, the resolver then gets that a proof and then sends it to the smart contract. The smart contract
Resolver
will
is a
see
smart
which
contract.
node operator. The resolver is a smart contract. Okay. And then that resolver will then check the proof. It would then show, hey, slash this node operator, and then the slashing happens on Ethereum.
No, well, it can happen like depending on their, like we have collateral abstraction that basically enables you to use assets from other blockchains. It's a like simple messaging, one-way messaging, and I don't know, escrow contract or something like that basically validates the state of Ethereum. And if it sees that like the Ethereum sent the message to Slash, it unwraps and burns. But yeah, it can be anywhere, like it can be on Celestia. And by the way, yeah, Cosmos SDK has a really good slashing condition. So we use that as a Cosmos SDK plus Comet BFT, I think, as a demonstrator for the first network, that like dummy network that we created.
And so my question is more on the resolvers. So let's say you have $1 billion stake, but let's say the slashing conditions are less obvious. Instead of sort of being immediately provable, let's say it's more committee based. Let's say it's a committee of whatever, five people, founder, investor, community member. Then would the security be dependent on that committee?
Yep.
And then if it would,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
I expect this to be the case for a lot of networks from the beginning. Like a lot of LRTs want to be involved, or at least have veto power for the resolver. So I think the committee is gonna be like not one committee, but like a group of committees. Is gonna be like prevalent before we have like algorithmic ones. Like this is like a lot of people think that this is kind of like not stable, because they have like every incentive not to enable slashing, not to like to veto slashing. But in the other side of it is that like they will lose, like their stakes immediately becomes unusable for every network if they veto any valid slashings. Yeah, so that's like basically like mutual destruction scenario. And if there are like what we try to incentivize as much as possible is for network to have like different stake sources. So even like if one resolver connected to one LRT or like stake providers is like faulty or is corrupt, the stability of network is not going to be like hugely impacted.
Because there's always a problem of you have all the stake, but the governance, let's say like, the Cosmos SDK has like a governance where it's people won't agree to slashing, or a committee's like, am I gonna like burn this guy's money because like his internet went down, or like, whatever, he was like in a hurricane. I think having the governance still involved, but then having multiple assets then pushes the risk onto the assets. And so now it tells everyone that like you deposited Ethereum into here, but this Ethereum is no longer secure because this committee has, agreed not to slash someone. And so then I guess that pushes the security not onto the committee, but actually onto the people who provide the security and those assets. Is that like a good way to think about it?
Yeah. Well, committee represents those people. So it's a first line of delegation, because like if the committee is corrupt, like the natural reaction for that is for every network to offboard this sort of configuration. So like your stake is not making you any money because networks are not using this anymore. So for LRT, basically the most interested party in being in the committee, it's basically a suicide scenario because your stake becomes zero, not because of slashing, but because people withdraw.
Could you talk more about, so there's like this worry about LRTs and like restaking, and like it's like the subprime mortgage sort of all over again, and if like it's sort of blurry how secure these things are, and so like you might mix sort of LRTs might have a basket of restaking that they're doing, but like it's not immediately clear how risky some of these sort of stakes in security are. So then like you don't really, you're mixing all these different security stakes with each other. You're not sure how much slashing is in between them. Does that happen? Does that turn into a 2008 subprime mortgage scenario?
Yeah. Well, that's why I mentioned that risk scoring agencies are gonna be like, and companies are gonna be really important for that. We have multiple working on helping us to do the risk scoring, and there's gonna be like competition again because we are not gonna do it ourselves. That's why like we need them. Yeah, it can be. The problem was like, at least as far as I understand it, in 2008 was the lack of transparency. People didn't actually know like what was the basis of their mortgages. Like the risk scoring was off. Like Standards and Poor's and other risk like agencies were not properly evaluating the risk profile. And even when the like defaults on mortgages like spiked, they haven't adjusted the actual like bond rating. For us to do that, like first, yeah, like way easier to analyze, because we don't expect to have like millions upon like tens of millions of like active mortgages, active networks. But yeah, like as a case of like actual restaking, I think if we're careful enough and don't have like one point of failure, because like if you have like one resolver type, right, as in case like with Eigen and other protocols, if you have one methodology that that basically encompasses the whole protocol, if it fails, like everyone's lost their money. Here you have isolated using different methodologies, different resolvers, different stake. So when some part of it fails, it's not gonna take like the entirety of it. And yeah, like slashing is different in terms of like mortgage um, failure and like failure to foreclosure, right? It's a like binary event. You had your house and you lost your house, right? Like here it's different. For a lot of networks, slashing is sequential, so you can't slash like 100% of the stake. Like you double sign one block, you get slashed by one block. You can't be like slashed for like being in the schedule, in the, like in somewhere. And yeah, like it's gonna be fairly easy to isolate, and it's probably gonna be limited.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems with the subprime mortgage was the lack of transparency, and the risk was unclear, but also it was piled on into one system, which was like the US dollar. And so it was sort of like you talk about like a suicide scenario, and with Eigenlayer, if you have like everything on one token, like the US government is not going to like kill themselves. Like what they're going to do is they're going to like bail everyone out. And sort of if you say that like intersubjectivity, like if it's just one token, the suicide scenario might be like, oh shit, like everyone's money is involved. And then like in that case, they're not going to like they're not going to like they don't want to kill themselves, and they're also not going to like slash. And so if you have like all of this I guess if you just overload the consensus, the committee, and they don't have and it's all in one system, and they're incentivized not to slash, you get sort of these piling on sort of 2008 scenarios. Is that like a correct way to think about it?
No, like there's gonna like there were a lot of talks about like social recovery, right? Like we just fork everything and like not slash. Uh, yeah, like if your system designed in a way that you ever need that, your system is not designed properly. Uh, like you first like you don't you shouldn't have like ability to do that. That's not like secure. And secondly, yeah, again, like some catastrophic failure will probably result in like forking. But like for us, it's easier. We don't have to like think about this too much, because like catastrophic failure is a scenario where people don't use anything but like one method, and we are gonna be the first one crying murder if that happens. Like guys, like use something else. Like don't put your like everything in one algorithmic basket.
Could you talk about sort of the use cases and where restaking is applicable? So is restaking only applicable for just like a whole bunch of nodes within consensus, or is there like more other sort of use cases for this?
Yeah, yeah. The node, the decentralized networks is the prime case for this, especially the ones requiring like super high capital efficiency, say like pre-confirmations, right? Oracles that would never provide like enough rewards for like actual huge economic base to be viable. Otherwise, like they'll dilute themselves to hell eventually. But like it can be used for insurance. Like restaking is like basically insurance. You like everyone like bunches their funds together, and like if insurance incident happens, people are losing their money. Like insurers are losing their money. If it never happens, they are getting premiums. So say something like what Aave has, like security module, it's like basically it's a clear case of restaking. It's just like using one token. If you have like a security base for a lot of protocols, like to protect against hacking or like bad debt in case of lending protocols, restaking can be definitely used for that. Basically, any application that has a risk that super rarely materializes, but the effect of this risk is enormous, can use restaking.
I didn't think about that immediately. So I was like surprised that like that's really how it does work.
Yeah, we missed that as well.
Can
But
we
we,
talk?
like we were, I was initially I was like trying to figure out I was researching other attempts that was before us. Same like with the merge mining, with like anchoring for like Namecoin and everything like that. Like other attempts at shared security, and I for like realized that there are a lot of narrow cases, and Aves safety module was one of them. Like you just stake somewhere, it just lies there and waits for the bad debt to occur. If bad debt never occurs, you're fine, you're just getting money. If you're not, like you're gonna lose some of it. And yeah, like we realized that, and we designed the system in a way to accommodate for that from the start. So you can have operators, or you not have an operator, like it's fine.
One of the arguments against restaking is that if you can have this proof that someone needs to be slash, why don't you just use ZK? So can you give me an example of when sort of ZK is needed, or will ZK completely eat restaking? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Who's gonna operate ZK? Operators, right? And like for ZK, will still need like the good yeah, good ZK will still need some form of stake, because like it's expensive. It needs to be operated properly. It needs UX, because if it loses UX, people are not going to be using that. So I think it's going to be complementary at the end. A lot of ZK systems, like we have several ZK coprocessors launching on us. I don't think that like it might solve some cases, so you don't have to have stake or like any economic security. But I think even those cases, just for the user experience base, are going to be using stake eventually. And even if there is no slashing, restaking can be used. Stake can be used as a voting mechanism or gating mechanism for you to have like a really robust validator set, even if there is no slashing, right? You want the best ones, and the best ones are decided because the most users trust them and delegate to them. Like we have this scenario in Solana, right? Zero slashing, but stake is used for delegation and gating for the active validator set. So I don't think I think like ZK and restaking will go hand in hand, just like supporting each other. And for we use several we have several resolvers that are building on ZK. So like I expect it to be the important part of the system when it finally matures.
Yeah. Honestly, think I understand Symbiotic well. Is there anything I'm missing? Any misconceptions before we wrap things up?
No, like the restaking in general is mystified a lot, completely unnecessary. We are not hopefully, we're definitely gonna launch really soon. The countdown is already started internally. And I think that like once people will actually get the first bunch of networks launched, a lot of like misconceptions are gonna like disappear like organically, because like before that it was like, oh yeah, like are you gonna overload the consensus of Ethereum? Like no, like we are on execution layer, we're not touching consensus at all. And currently the questions are moving to like, I'm a vault operator, like what is the lockup period I should be like using for my tokens? And like, yeah, take the longest for the longest network that you want to delegate to, and like use that. And how do I optimize that? So we are moving to like applied questions. Like what sort of is it fine for me to launch without resolver? I'm like confident that like the algorithm is fine. Is it fine for me to launch with one stake provider? Like no. No, like it's a DPoS with one delegator, right? Like it's not anything. So yeah, like questions are more applied. I think we will answer those. The misconception, yeah, like I think the most common one is that we are Ethereum protocol. Like because we had like several networks that are launching on different ecosystems, and they're like, no, we're gonna use like the smaller protocol that like your fork or something that it's like on Solana or somewhere else because it's native to us. And we're like, no, like we actually like we use like Ethereum for data availability. Like mostly we don't actually care, like and you shouldn't care as well. Like you can use like LRTs from your network and your ecosystem. You can use operators to operate your like we don't like actually depend on Ethereum that much.
Yeah, I think that was a really good overview. I enjoyed learning about Symbiotic. I guess we're time to wrap it up. Can you like give a shout out, call to action, and then thank you so much.
Yep, hang tight. We're like launching soon. Just enjoy your holidays, and like when you're done, Symbiotic is gonna show you how restaking is done actually in production.
Thank you so much, Misha.
Thank you.